Hi, and welcome to Solidarity House. My name is Emily Best. I'm the founder and CEO of Seed&Spark. And Solidarity House is a space and a practice. We are here creating meaningful alignment where imagination meets infrastructure and solidarity becomes strategy. This gathering is designed to strengthen our collective capacity to imagine and build the future of independent storytelling, and co-design pathways towards a more sustainable and equitable creative future that centers repair, liberation, and sovereignty. Live captioning for this session is available through Coda, which is a web-based tool that is accessible on your mobile device. We also have charging stations all over if you need that. It does not require an account or logins. If you navigate to thesolidarityhouse.com/schedule, the unique Coda link is there in the session schedule that you can get there and just open it right up. Our next activation is titled Who Stewards the Future? Artists, Audiences, and the Fight for Agency. And we're very grateful to have these esteemed guests. Before I introduce them, on the last panel that Bliss Collective hosted, Savannah said something that I think is really, really powerful, which is that solidarity requires sacrifice. And I'm gonna ask us to sacrifice something at the top of this panel together, which is our comfort. To stand in solidarity with another murdered protester in Minneapolis this morning, with Palestine, with Sudan, with all oppressed peoples across the country. Sorry. ICE came into my community today and is snatching up my neighbors. And I think we cannot leave the context of the world outside of this space while we are in it. Knowing that all of the conversations that we're having are threads that we can pull on a sort of wicked problem, a wicked knot that we're trying to untangle, and that all of the work that we are doing is in service of building solidarity with these people across these challenges and together. And I thank you for allowing me the time and grace to talk about it. Because I think thank you, you're so sweet. I shouldn't have worn mascara today anyway. Cried 9 times since we started the Solidarity House.
The gift of water.
I want us to know that this space is a place to be in all of those feelings simultaneously, to acknowledge all the truths at the same time, that what we are experiencing here is warmth and kind of a miracle of community, and that what is happening outside of here is very scary, and our neighbors are being stolen off the street. And the extent to which we can orient our work towards solving those problems, I think, is really, really important. And we all know that the devices in our pockets are a part of this larger conversation, which is somewhat of the orientation of this panel today. So would you just do me the favor, because I need to do it too, can we all take a very deep breath together? Thank you. Okay, now I get to introduce this unfucking believable panel. I'll just go down the line. Baratunde, Thurston, Valerie, Veatch, I did it. Dayo, Lamolo, Tyrell, and Christie, Marchese, my sister. I want to give them each time to introduce themselves and their work. But I want to start with, the last panel was really about what is solidarity and what does solidarity take? And I had to take notes because I'm in my feelings. This panel is really about agency, because our agency is a critical component of solidarity. So I would really like you to we'll go down the line and talk to us, just a brief introduction of you and your work. And what does the concept of agency mean in your work right now? So Baratunde, we'll start with you. Welcome.
Thank you. The uncomfortable feeling of uncontrollable emotion is a decidedly human experience. And I really am grateful to you for bringing us into our deeper human. That is part of what our future demands and requires. Thank you. I'm Baratunde Thurston. I've recently been appointed the regional provost of Greenland. You should hear it from me first. I don't want you finding out on Truth Social. So Greenland has obviously launched a counterattack through the ice storm today. Don't fuck with elemental spirits. That's the message the Sami people tried to warn us. I'm a storyteller, trying to identify, amplify, and weave stories of how we can live well together, live in more of an interdependent way in our relationship with the earth, with fellow humans, and with machines. That for me shows up in projects. I did a beautiful PBS series, America Outdoors, which brought me actually to Utah. A podcast series, How to Citizen. Citizen is a verb, not a separative, domination-based noun. And lately, Life with Machines, which is exploring how we live well with tech and not just endure it. And especially in this AI moment, can we use it to bridge into a deeper humanity, deeper connection to ourselves, each other, and the earth? So there is just a refrain of that. Agency is that's a beautiful word because the tech lords love to throw it at us because they have their version of it. We're living in a lot of their future and their imagination. Thank you, Ruha Benjamin, for some of that language. So I think what I hear about agency is a subset of what it is. What I hear is that it's about individual empowerment to do more, to produce more, to accomplish more, faster, with less energy. Which makes us better tools to a machine that we don't actually control. There are additional dimensions of agency that are showing up in my work that I'm trying to help amplify the story of, so we have a different goal besides subservience and output, and that is agency with others, to shift into a multiplayer mode, not just single player mode around these tools and technologies. And what can I do with you? Don't just replace people, help me connect with and build with other people. And then the third dimension being power, which is really an uncomfortable conversation for the broligarchy types because they are fiending on it and drawing it out of us. So if I can only produce more in the job you've created for me, I have no more power. Only when I can change the circumstances of my situation, preferably with others, that's agency. Not just capability, but community and power. And so how do we expand our discourse, our language, our target to achieve that? Not just more efficient operating within a machine that clearly doesn't serve life.
Those were a few bars. Valerie?
Hi, I'm Valerie Veatch, and I have a film here at the festival called Ghost in the Machine that premieres on Monday, and it's a really exciting piece. And the project of that film is to kind of dismantle this fantasy of thinking machines. And when we kind of have that banner of superintelligence, what happens underneath that is we see massive deregulation, massive consolidation of power, and that kind of that assumption of this inevitable future, is to be challenged, and that's kind of the project of the film. And in terms of agency, I love what you said. I think agency is rooted in community, and I think that the truest thing we can do right now is to connect with each other and to create authentic, rooted experiences. And I have a little button here that says "Not AI," and I think that the agency we all have is to reject this inevitability narrative and this kind of non-consensual integration of so-called AI tools into our creative workflow, and we can just push back and we can say no. And instead we can find and locate agency and community with each other. So that's my work.
Also, check out Valerie's shoes.
Also check out my shoes.
We must acknowledge the kicks.
The fashion.
The drip is tight.
Afternoon to all of you. My name is Dayo. I have spent my career sitting at the intersection of technology and media, and have two hats on accordingly today. I work at the Mozilla Foundation, looking after our strategic communications, and I'm also the board chair of Open Television, which is one of the coalition members at Solidarity House. Working at this intersection means that I have seen the coalface of big corporate tech. I have worked at Facebook. I have worked at YouTube. I have worked at Amazon. And working within Mozilla has really reminded me that this era of digital distribution and online-only engagement really erases unnecessarily the pipeline, the infrastructure that is fundamental to creativity and to community. And so when I think of agency and I think of the mission of Mozilla, it is really just to remind all of you that the internet is yours, right? I mean, look under your chair, like you get an internet, you get internet, you get internet, like it is ours. And it is so easy in the era of platform economics and mind share to forget that the internet is a protocol of networked interoperability upon which people have amassed a lot of power, but it is yours. And so when I think of agency and I think of that message, I hope it's something that whatever the technology is something you remember.
And hello, my name's Charlie Tyrell. I'm also here with the other AI film called the AI Doc, premiering on Tuesday. It's my third Sundance. It's my first time with a feature. It's my first time with a team as scaled as this one is. And transparency here, this question was in the prep materials, and I've been unable to figure out how to answer it since then, which unfortunately says something about me. But I think in the lens of filmmaking, agency is really, for me, about finding your voice. And that's a big filmmaker challenge. There's lots of filmmakers who are very successful who never found their voice. They're just really good at making movies. But I think your voice is what you care about. Or at least that's what it is to me in my filmmaking. So in regards to tech and AI, my kind of short summary is I think that there's a scale tipping that, like Valerie said, does need to be pushed back against, because if we don't decide what we want this technology to do for us, someone else is going to decide it for us. And they're usually very wealthy people that don't live in their own bubble, so don't let them do that. So yeah, I don't think I can speak better than anyone else here has already spoke, so I'm going to shut up.
Hi, I'm Christie Marchese, and I'm the founder and CEO of Kinema. We're a global streaming and screening event platform that's centered on filmmakers. So my background has been in this intersection of social media, film, TV, and social impact. So I kind of grew up in my career building followings or communities on MySpace to get you to register to vote, or on Facebook to watch The Cove and stop the dolphin slaughter in Taiji, or follow the bully campaign and stop bullying in schools. So I've been watching that shift over the years of what that looks like to have a relationship with an audience or a community that gets shifted over by the algorithms when advertisers come in, when now you used to have friends on social media and now you just have content being pushed on you. So when we look at building a platform for people to watch movies, we're trying to stay conscious that we want to build something that can scale, but also keep that autonomy and power with the filmmakers so they can have that audience, take it with them, not become platform dependent, while also building an audience within Kinema to bring to those films. So we're constantly thinking about non-algorithmic technology for filmmakers.
You know, maybe my favorite thing about getting to curate a panel at Sundance is like, yeah, all the smartest people are going to be there, both in the audience and available to you. And then you get to curate the conversation that you desperately want to watch. So, like, I'm just going to nerd the F out over the next 45 minutes, and I will try to leave time for your questions also, but I have a bunch. Baratunde, I wanted to start with you because you have spent years examining how technology reshapes social contracts. And I am curious for you to answer the question, what is the most seductive lie that we tell ourselves about progress through technology? And how does your work, or how might we try to interrupt that?
Oh man, we tell us
It's kind of a leading question, isn't it?
we tell ourselves a lot of lies, and we're so good at retrofitting a story to justify behavior, and that's. No ethnic group has a monopoly on that, no nation state, no people of a particular time or space. It's a very human thing to justify. I think the seduction, though, is that's a really good word. And it goes back to the production. What we're being sold is optimization and efficiency. But the core thing that's happening is there's no experience behind it, right? Okay, here's a story. Super rich people want to live forever, right? It's like the last grounds of competition amongst themselves that they have. The money is meaningless. So now it's like, who can live the least meaningful life the longest? And it's always a guy, and they're always bald. It's basically Skeletor. It's always that. And they deny themselves the experience of life in order to extend the duration of it. So they don't like food, right? Like, that's a test. Do you like food? If so, come with me. If not, you do your thing over there. But they're trying to drag us into a foodless future where it's just like pills and supplements and goo, right? And that's just a small example. And it's all this optimization to stick around and do fucking nothing. To own shit that is unownable. You cannot own the fucking earth, right? We're in Solidarity House. Shout out to Black Liberation, Indigenous Sovereignty, and other partners of this space. But the lie is that we can do more in life, extend the duration of life, but get by without actually fucking living. And all of this is an intervention between us and life itself. So when we don't know the earth, right? It's like the ultimate colonization project. If you thought colonizing people and land was shitty, wait till it comes for the soul. And that's what this is. Do everything in the fucking mall, right? Everything is a commercial space. Your friendships, your worship space, your sex life, your nutritional life, your communal space, your creativity. It's all like on their net to make money to extend the life of a non-entity that is a corporation, rather than giving a fuck about a tree, which is much more intelligent, if we would have ears to fucking hear. And so it's a really big lie. It goes to like historical moments of doctrine of domination and the Pope and what set sail into the quote unquote new world. It's erasure. It's a whole bunch of stuff that I think the people who are even caught up in it, and this is where the empathy is required. Because it's very easy for me to do what I just did. I'm good with the words. I can slam you, great. But then, to what end? I am also seduced by it.
We were talking about this last
right? Like, I want to do more. I want to accomplish more. I want to hack my life and find the system that'll get me more money in less time and more. To what end? So everything I just launched at them comes back to me. And then I got to ask, well, how did they get that way? Right? We're not born that way. We're nurtured into it, and we're conditioned and incentivized into it. And so we are the system that we want to change. And it's this fractal, circular relationship, chicken and egg, but it's a cycle. And we start in both, and neither on its own is enough. Nothing's ever enough, but we're all enough. Like, it gets real fucking philosophical. But the core lie is around the life thing for me.
Yeah, and last night you said a thing that I made a mental note to make sure got repeated in this room, which is like, imagine how hard it is to change the system when it's hard to change us, right? If we're the fundamental unit, right? That has really been clanging around up here since then.
Empathize with Skeletor. I guess that's my point. He was once human.
So Dayo, I want to come to you next. And Mozilla has been trying to build a counter narrative to the move fast and break things, right? And that's really part of your remit, right? Is gathering people there. So how do you make responsible stewardship feel as exciting as disruption?
That's a fair point, right? It can't all be spinach. That's an important part of being for something. Is more encouraging and more alluring than being against and alarmist and morose about something. And so one of the key tenets of the energy that Mozilla Foundation puts into the spaces we come into is joy, and the fundamental kind of message we have is that we just deeply believe that the future is going to be human. Humans will make choices together as individuals and collectively, and that is the engine of the future, and it's not disputed. It's something we deeply believe. And the mechanisms for doing it, the foundation has an extensive tradition of challenging defaults, right? I mean, those of you who aren't as familiar with Mozilla may remember the Firefox browser, right? It was like, we don't actually have to only have a couple of choices. Imagine going to a buffet and seeing only one kind of chicken. It just is fundamental that people's agency is grounded in the availability of alternatives and defending alternatives to the death so that people have the agency to make those choices between defaults feels critical. And so it is a practice of empowerment in positivity and optimism, and defiant optimism, right? Not naive, Pollyannish optimism, but just a sense that, like, this isn't over. And I think the feeling of resignation. I was chatting to someone earlier about the words of the year. The dictionaries have the words of the year. And since 2000, tech has been a part of the words of the year. And it started off really cute, like blog, and podcast, emoji, selfie. But as time has gone on, the percentage of words of the year that mention tech has increased. And the sentiment around those words has decreased. They're negative now. It's brain rot, it's slop, it's enshittification. These are the words we now associate with tech. So it is ever more mainstream, and people are anxious. And so into that space of anxiety, we are offering positivity. Again, standards, legal defenses, building shit. These are the tools Mozilla has always used. And the story we're telling now is to invite folks in. I feel like I've been going on for a while, but I will frame that this dialogue between tech and media has been grounded in listening. We have conducted assemblies in 2025, knowing we have technical expertise. We have engineering and developer communities that are not involved really in film and television and entertainment. But can we bring them together and listen? Like, in this world of AI, what same story can we share? Not to answer the question, but to formulate one together, and then attack solutions with everyone's best skills.
Christie, just full transparency, Christie and I talk once a week for at least an hour. And we have been doing more or less that since 2020, when we just kept each other afloat, trying to build tech platforms in dire circumstances. I think of the way that you build infrastructure as a form of storytelling about what's possible. And so I'm curious, for you, what is the most persistent myth about creator-audience relationships that maybe traditional platforms perpetuate, and how does the Kinema model challenge that?
So much so. Well, first I do want to say, like, Dayo, everything you just said is like what we're trying to do at Kinema. Like, truly, like everything, just word for word for word. Like, I want to be Mozilla of streaming platforms is what I want to be, because we listen to the creators, we listen to the filmmakers, we want to be a counterbalance. So that was just so nice to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you for building what you're building. Make more stuff.
Like, we're just copying you, so it's great. No, thank you. So about the myths about the creator relationship, I'm not sure if it's coming. Are you thinking more from the brand side or like from the streaming platform side? Tell me.
I mean, so I'm sort of thinking in terms of like, there's a lot of myths about the creator-audience relationship, some of which is perpetuated by, let's say, like big Hollywood or big tech. And I think there's also some myths that exist in the creators' minds about the creator-audience relationship. So I'm just curious about how you think about those.
Yeah, but part of it is ownership of like, what does it mean to like own an audience? I think what we found is that you build this following online, you don't actually have ownership over it. You don't even have a direct relationship other than maybe some DMs, because anytime an algorithm changes, you can lose connection. I'm sure this has happened to anybody here who's either built a following or following people, that suddenly they start disappearing from your feed, or you're seeing that content for whatever reason changing. And so I think the main thing is that you actually have an audience. I think that's the bigger myth, because it can disappear in a heartbeat based off of what any algorithmic changes. So the only relationship we've really seen exist is brand, like if you have a strong brand where people know who you are outside of the feed, and email addresses. And so building a relationship like through email. So those are things that we're focused on, helping build a brand outside of social media, even though it is a very effective tool, and then building email lists.
I also just want to uplift that something that Kinema is doing that I think is actually revolutionary, and that as an action item we could all take back into our own communities, is the toolkit makes it possible to turn any third space into a theater space. Your coffee shop, your basement, your church, your community center, your living room, your backyard. And a lot of us in this room have real stakes in building an industry that we own, right? And a sustainable industry that we own. But how many of us are actually creating these new audience magnets? And who the fuck else is going to do it if not us? So I just want to say that, and say maybe then go to Kinema and see some of the incredible films that are on the platform.
Brothers on 3 right there.
And host a screening in your community, because that is an incredible expression of agency that is available to us, and also starts to unspool this idea that there aren't audiences, there aren't spaces, there aren't new models, there aren't new ways. So yeah,
And real quick, I would say also just thinking of it as relationships too. You're actually building actual relationships with individuals, and to try and find ways to meet up either online or in person. Some of us here just came from like a Substack, Film Stack, or Meetup. And these are people who are kind of building followings and communities online, meeting in person, and actually building those relationships directly. And we're finding those are stronger bonds that you can carry through to your online spaces.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to turn to our 2 filmmakers now. Valerie, I have so many questions. I'm curious if in the making of this film, you had to learn or unlearn any new stories about technology or AI in specific. And did that influence then the direction that the way that you crafted the film?
Right. So in making this project, this is actually my 3rd feature documentary on technology and society to premiere at Sundance. Over 14 years. It's not like I go through a lot.
Okay.
You know,
Clap
but
for that. Clap for that.
no, to bad.
That's what we're here for.
So
Yes.
I feel like when, in 2012, when I did my first film, it was called Me at the Zoo, which is the title of the first YouTube video. And at the time, the dialogue was like, YouTube is democratizing access to storytelling. And at the same time, we saw this kind of almost grotesque, like centering of the self in a commercialized context. And that felt like, okay, this is democratizing, but there's also something kind of sinister happening. And it's kind of an arty film, and it's, draped around a character. And I was I even had a hard time deciphering, is this good or not? And then the follow-up film to that was the story of the first time that internet addiction was used as a mental illness defense. This couple in Korea were raising an online fairy child, and they had a real-life baby who died, very terrible cocktail party chat, who died in the investigation. The police officer said they weren't liable because of internet addiction, and it was before that was a term in the DSM. And, I was like, well, this will sort of start to get people's attention, that maybe these technologies aren't connecting us, maybe something else is happening. And with Ghost in the Machine, this was the culmination of those threads. But what I love about the AI space right now, and a lot of the work that comes from people who are part of the Mozilla Foundation and other, Ezekiel Dixon-Roman is here, who's in the film. The critique around technology and AI right now is actually the critique around power. And the story of technology has always been a story of power. And I think that's what I sort of saw really clearly in making Ghost in the Machine. And it was sort of the final kind of pulling away of this veil that maybe something about these systems functions in a way that brings us together, because ultimately that's not the case. The AI, so-called, is just the culmination of deregulation, data theft, and the consolidation of corporate power that we've been seeing happen for 50 years or whatever. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Right.
I can't tell you. I can't tell you if you answered my question or not. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's really interesting just to have your experience here to tie that arc together from everything that we've been seeing, and to understand that this at every stage we are being asked to usurp more of our agency in order to adopt these tools in our lives, in order to become more productive cogs in the wheel, and staying aware of that while you still got a 9 to 5, or like you still got to pay the bills. Like that's a real ongoing challenge. Do you have a, go ahead. And then I got a question for Charlie. Go ahead, please.
It's a finer point on the trajectory. And I may have said it, but just the consolidation of our human energy into a new medium of control, right? Like the Roman Catholic Church didn't have the surveillance powers or the manipulation powers of a digital relationship with a large language model that is made to feel human and to catch its breath as it voices to you. Like, there's no need for that. Right? Tools don't need to be us to be useful to us. So there's something else happening here. You're already giving up the game. My hammer's not like getting a fade. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a whole different thing. And so when everything gets poured into that interface and then we don't know what's in it, it's not open source, like then there's all kind of other shenanigans going and it's all a commercial interest, which is pretty transparent. It's never in the sales pitch, but it's in the S1 filings. And so every interaction then becomes a commodifiable like node of potential profit. And that's the deep colonization thing I keep coming back to because it is a claim of territory for all of life to like we won't live it. We will log into it and then have it served to us. And we're already seeing like what's happening in Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's good-natured people trying to use deep fakes to troll ICE. But that's just pouring more poison into the common well that we all drink from. So then distrust of all images goes down, which empowers the despot and the dictator to define the only possible truth by brute force alone. Yeah.
I mean, chapter 8 in Ghost and Machine is called Slopaganda. And what is happening to our democracy and our shared sense of reality because of the ability for these systems, and Ezekiel makes this point in the film very well, but the ability of these systems to produce at scale, you know, images that aren't real, it isn't just the cognitive tax of deciphering is this real or not, but it's the erosion of our ability to have solidarity and commonality because we don't know what their shared truth is. Horrible.
We will bring the conversation up.
Will we? I don't know. I don't.
There's a good future,
Can you,
and
like,
they're helping build it, and they're helping build it, and we're telling those stories too.
Hold on if I'm making any promises just yet. Just real quick. You don't know what the rest of my questions are. Actually, you do. I did send them to you.
I stopped reading at this point. I have no idea what happens next.
Charlie, I want to take this I am going to take this to a lighter direction really quickly, but I don't know what you're going to make of this. I was actually reading a lot of the marketing materials around the film because I'm really curious about how do we get people out to see something called the AI doc. And I noticed that the press materials, it says handmade. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, where does that come from and what does it mean to you?
Well, I mean, as a human being and a filmmaker, I need tactility. Like, I need to kind of touch things and see things. I have things on my person that connect me to people in my life all the time. Darren gave me this dead Bart pin, so I have Darren. He's my buddy. And a result of that is I work in a lot of stop motion animation, and that's incorporated into a lot of my films. And has anyone here done stop motion animation? Good. 4 to 7 seconds a day, and it is. It truly is. But it forces you. Shouldn't say force because it's so enjoyable, but it really makes you live with your idea for a lot longer than, okay, I'm gonna go capture you, got it, hey, what's your favorite color? You tell me, good. So now I'm like, okay, I want to look at what a favorite color is, what are ways I can do that? And the thing that's important to me about animation in general is it's a space for a lot of self-reflection as the filmmaker. And sometimes that means autobiographical elements slip in there. But it's also a space for a lot of emotionality. That tactility, like I said, is important. When you see a thumbprint, and if you guys see the movie, you'll see it's not super, some people call it slick, animation, some people will be like, wow, that looks like a high schooler did it. And it's that aesthetic that I enjoy because I like to see thumbprints on things. I like to see, really illustrate that feeling that a human being went behind this and a human being made every single frame of this. Computers were used to, sure, take out the little wire rigs that held up the box while it was floating in air for a second, but a human made every single click on that rotoscope. So, it's something, I move kind of slow through the world. Whatever contributes to that, I don't know. I see my therapist every 2 weeks and we're working on it.
Maybe don't. Maybe don't. Maybe
Well,
that's the answer.
No, that's a
Proof
real
of
point
humanity.
because I also value let the feelings be confusing. Don't, they're called feelings. Just try and let them live through you and don't always try to, and I think a challenge that we have with the digitization of our culture right now is we're trying to be analytical about everything. I love all the subjects in our film to death, but you could ask them a question and be like, what do you think the film is lens through the frame of fatherhood, impending fatherhood. My co-director and I were both having kids a week apart when we started the film, so a lot of the questions are, what future is this for my son? And we had subjects who said that there are people that believe your son will not make it to high school. So that's a really tough thing to hear as someone who's going on that path. But with them, because they're all, and I'm not grouping them by any means, but they're STEM, analytical minds. They work in technology. They're engineers. When you ask them, how does that make you feel? It's a lot of, oh, what do you mean? And I think that in that pursuit, a lot of what my colleagues are speaking about here is we distance ourselves from that messiness that we kind of need, and we need to be creators, and I need to be a creator, and it's just so important to stumble through it. And whose timeline are you on? So cool. I'm going to keep that in my pocket, Baratunde. And to
Whose
the
time is it anyway?
Well, and to the question that you asked, Baratunde, one of my biggest pet peeves with the technology is the timeline and the pace and the speed, and always I have other filmmakers who are making things every month and they're beautiful. I'm like, what the fuck? And it took me a long time to learn that I don't want to do that, and I want to just, I'm going to be doing this hopefully. Maybe, I don't know, I'm also open to getting sick of it and doing something else, but hopefully until I die, this is my practice. This is what I want to do. And when you look at things on that kind of long timeline, what's the rush?
Yo, whose timeline are you on, my guy? God damn.
Dayo, you said something under your breath that you talked about last night at dinner, and I actually want you to talk about that right now, because I think it's important for this, because Charlie, boy, if you didn't just demonstrate why we need artists in telling stories about technology, because it's not just your approach to the story, it's actually your experience of telling the story and then talking to us about your experience of telling the story.
And it's perspective. I made a short film that premiered here years ago called My Dead Dad's Porno Tapes. It's about my relationship with my father and sifting through his stuff after he died to try and figure out who he was. And making that film, I have an older brother, I have an older sister, he has an older brother and an older brother and another, my uncles. And I was really scared when making that film because I was like, am I telling, is this truth with a capital T? Is this his story? And my mother is, I'll tell anyone who wants to after about my mom and how much I love her, but quite compassionately, she said, that doesn't matter because it's your perspective. This is your story and your relationship with him. They have their own, and that's what's important about artists and filmmakers in the ways that we tell stories, because we're lending a perspective. A lot of people will overlap with it and feel less alone and share that perspective with you. And then there will be people who don't align with it and oppose it, and that's okay too. You need these kind of little beacons to know what thoughts are in people's heads. So that's why that variety is important.
I'll speak a little bit about what I mentioned in our dinner conversation yesterday, which was just recognizing that you might be trying to take a shortcut sometimes on something that requires civilizational patience, And this was prompted by the Disciple, which is a documentary here, which is about the Wu-Tang Clan's single copy of the album that none of us will ever listen to because it can't be listened to until 2103. And the resistance to getting whatever you want whenever you want it. And scarcity as a kind of gift at times, right? And there's a lot of discussion about introducing friction and paying attention to the process of a thing that, technology often robs us of that with the crutch it provides and the efficiencies of technologies as presented and marketed to us. So, early in my career, I spent time covering technology in sub-Saharan Africa, and, a cell phone as marketed to someone who is used to not taking things as they are marketed to them. They take the phone apart. They're using different. It's something that is not taken for granted elsewhere, and so that is the point I was making yesterday. That friction is actually a critical part of our human experience, and wanting technology to erase it for us is a fiction, I suppose.
It's all fiction. It's all made up. Yeah. Like it's the terror and beauty of the moment. All this shit is made up. There's no United States. It's just a fucking story. There's no dollar. We just tell ourselves there is and we work for it, but it doesn't mean shit. In a quantum physical true reality sense, it's just like collective stories that we tell ourselves to make sense of things, to make the next step mean something and the previous step. The thing that I'm hearing here that it brought a clarity. It's like so many of the storytellers of technology are the sellers of technology. Mm-hmm. Yes. And they have a literal interest in an outcome, so their stories are warped. But they're not the only ones with the responsibility, the opportunity, the requirement to tell that story. What you shared about the sub-Saharan Africans, like they changed the story. They're like, fuck your marketing pitch. I'm gonna make this mean something else for me. And so many of them, and it's a bless their hearts moment. Like there's a limitation often, right? In many, we're all on a spectrum of experience and understanding, and there's due compassion for that, and non-ceding of all of our collective power and authority to that limited narrow view. So to see life as a problem to be solved is like a big premise of that project, rather than a gift to be experienced. Which goes to this time thing that, especially Charlie, you were bringing in.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go off script here a little bit because something that's really emergent for me right now is that the moment that we're in is not about discovering agency, because in fact we are born with it. That is part of our human dignity. There is a demand for agency, meaning you have this free ass will. Why would you choose to do things that enrich billionaires? Why would you choose to do things that harm your neighbors? Why would you choose to feed the Hollywood machine rather than build systems outside of the machine that we collectively own? Why, when we can have solidarity, would we choose competition? And I just kind of got chills for a second because I was like, oh, I think all of my work as a storyteller, as a tech founder, with Motherboard, the tech justice nonprofit that I co-founded, all of my work is really about helping people sort of discover their agency. And all of a sudden I'm like, am I being too chill about it? Like, is actually the thing that is emerging now that you better step up and use your agency.
Yes.
Say more about that.
Yeah, so Totally. I think that we have a real opportunity right now. The time could not be more urgent we have these pans, right? I keep going back to this, but to push back and to refuse. At the end of our film, Jonathan Flowers has this amazing quote. He said, the most radical thing you can do in the age of AI is to simply ask, does this need AI? And if you can't answer the question, then it doesn't need it. And you can refuse to use it when it is offered to you over and over again. And I think that what you said about introducing friction into our experience and rejecting the kind of frictionless integration of these systems is really important. And one of the reasons I'm here, one of the reasons I made this film, I self-funded it. This is not a film that's funded by tech. It's not got Hollywood distribution. It's not story for the system. It's a kind of counter narrative to this super intelligence lie. and I think that this moment requires like an extreme reaction. It's no longer that we can be like, okay, well, I'll just sort of, log back into my whatever and do whatever. Like, we have to decide what we're doing here, and you opened with talking about Minneapolis. In our film, we kind of trace this very direct line from, early kind of constructions of colonial power, eugenics, the early ways that compute was kind of constructed through the early 90s when we start to hear people talking about techno-fascism, and into the current day where we see these systems really like deeply rooted. The hour is very late, as we see. So I think that like it's not a chill moment, and I have zero chill about this moment. I think that we need to take an active rejection of this technology, and that's what not AI means. It's not like not using algorithms to process data. That's like fine, like whatever, like weather systems, yay, spell check, yay. But it's actually not allowing for this kind of system of data theft and system of control that we see like happening around us.
I think the T-shirt for this panel is going to be like spell check, yay, but my hammer doesn't need a fade.
Can I offer something into the space? I have a different view, and I'll say that holding multiple perspectives at the same time is the ultimate Turing test, okay? Can you embrace nuance? Can you show up with curiosity and openness, knowing, as a defiant optimist would say, that like, if it isn't good, it isn't over. And so the moment we find ourselves in may be fraught, it may be alarming. There's a sense of precarity, particularly in this community industry, when new tools come forward. But I want to make sure there isn't shame on the maker, shame on the outputs, but focus on the standards and focus on the inputs. Because democratic access to any kind of technological tool throughout our human history has had positive and negative consequences, right? Starting with the printing press, starting with fire. And, the work Mozilla has been doing in this creative industry in 2025 has been trying to track both hopes and worries about the emergence of AI as a creative tool. And I spoke to someone yesterday who was like, I don't know if this is a perspective others share, but I'll ventriloquize for them. They said, craft is a privilege. Like, I make social justice documentaries, right? And sometimes I need motion capture, powerful tools that are derived from, LLMs or other technologies that have ethically compromised inputs. And so the future is human, which means we need to understand that two things can be true at the same time. And maker shame, I'm not here for it. I actually think Mozilla's history and strength and expertise is in doing that civilizationally patient standards-based work to focus on interoperability, right? To focus on open source standards, to actually go way, way, way upstream before the creator has to make an unethical choice, right? And that's the kind of collaborative work we're trying to do. If I could plug something, we have, as a result of these assemblies, created a report called Hollywood's 8 Rules for AI, which is, across more than 200 participants, 66% of whom said they didn't feel represented by any particular stakeholder or guild because it's a very freelance ecosystem. What they thought the rules of AI should be. And some of them were like maintain friction, like double check your provenance. But it wasn't no AI. It was, these would be the conditions we might seek to embrace it. And I think it's just not over yet. So that's the view I'll offer back to you and into the space. And do check out the rules. The Mozilla Foundation website has the report, and I think the data is really enriching, and we'll keep building on it.
Can I say one more thing about
Please.
this? So I think that there's an interesting way to look at this, which is something Marshall McLuhan, a really profoundly insightful media theorist, said, which is the medium is the message. So as creators, by engaging in creating with a large language model, you are invoking the politics around that use. And those politics include labor, they include infrastructure, and they include data, however we want to kind of categorize that. So Well, the kind of continuous seductive narrative around technology is that it does, increase access to storytelling. At what point do we draw the line? And I think as creators, without creating shame around it, I think it's important to still contextualize what it means to use that technology. And so, the medium is the message. I use generative AI in the documentary as a kind of like a punchline. It's like we're talking about superintelligence, and then it's like this, goofy Kool-Aid pitcher with one arm. Like obviously these systems aren't producing superintelligence. So, there's a total nuance to using these tools, and I understand that. I also think it's really important to understand what the political implications are and what you're saying by using a certain medium.
And I'll jump in to echo a lot of this. I think it's a yes and moment. It's like improv rules. Everybody should take a improv class to maintain your humanity, our humanity. It's just important. It's important. I work for Big Improv. I'm sorry. I get a percentage of every class, every shitty group joke that you write.
This has all been a UCB
accrues
pitch.
to my blockchain. One of the stories we told on Life with Machines, it was actually probably quantifiably our most resonant story, was a conversation I had with a man named Michael Running Wolf. He's part Lakota, part Cheyenne. He has machine learning credentials and skills. He used to work for Amazon, and now he's working on using AI to preserve and extend indigenous languages, especially those at risk of erasure due to history and choices that many people have made. And he had rules of engagement, right? He works with tribal partners for their sovereignty and agreement. He's not just willy-nilly scraping and capturing, but the technology itself, paired with IRL and a respect for ritual and ceremony, is so useful and so impossible to do the job without, right? To the same degree. There are ways, and some of them are spiritual and some of them are technological. So there's a techno-spiritual future available to us. There's the Earth Species Project, which was the second most resonant conversation, which is like giving us a deeper ability to understand the communications of the rest of the web of life. Like, what are these plants? What's up in the group chat with these trees? Shit is fire in there. And with the whales, and that introduces ethical. Are you going to use that to manipulate the whales? And tell them there's food here so you can take them? Or are you going to use it to like deepen our own relationship with the greater web of life? These are the choices, but articulating the politics embedded in them gives us more power, gives us more agency to then decide what's the future we want. And so much of what we've been hearing is like, if this future yours is so great, why are you forcing it on me? Like, I didn't ask for this button to turn into a Gen AI button. You just fucking did that. That's not proof of demand. It's proof of desperation. And there are actual problems that we could use powerful, networked, high compute, or small language models and thin compute resources to attack. Like, I don't know, the climate crisis. Earth is trying to evict us, and we could do something about that. We could do something about secret police and make them not so secret, and follow the money that is ours to determine how we use it in common, or listen to each other better, not replace each other with fake people.
In Earth's defense, we've been shitty tenants. So we have to bring this to a close. I wish we could do this for like 2 more hours, and I bet people would hold their pee in order for us to do that. Christie, I want to start with you because I feel like you have dedicated your career to incredibly practical ways to make it possible for creators to meet their audiences with impact. So as somebody who is building a toolkit for artists to steward the future, what is one thing or some things you might suggest that this room could do this week to leverage their agency to be better stewards of the future?
So there's many things, and so many things came up on that panel. I wish we could talk forever. I mean, first I want to talk about just going to what you were saying about the power that we have. You can have some control over your algorithms. And I think first and foremost, you have to pay attention to what's paying attention to you. And a lot of what people are saying, You brought this up for me. You are creating a counter to the fast food movement of storytelling. We have stuff that's being pushed in our feed that's cheap, it's fast, and it doesn't have any nourishment, and we're just consuming it. And so we need like the slow film movement, the slow creation movement, like the slow food movement. So what we all could be doing more consciously is stop waiting for content to being pushed on us to consume, and more thoughtfully be seeking out the stories that we want in the world and that we want to see in the world. So it's going to the movies, it's finding something on a platform that resonates with you, and it's sharing it with other filmmakers, and it's bringing community together and getting out of your home and watching something in community and not waiting for it to come to you.
Yes, we can do that this week. That's what we're here to do, I think. Yeah, Charlie?
In terms of what we can do this week,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all. I don't know about this week.
This
but,
month. This month, this year. Yeah. You're right, next month. Sorry, what can we do in February?
During Black History Month,
Most
what can we all do?
well, it's a lot to do with incentives. You know, I mean, that's what drives a lot of this technology. And I believe, I hope I'm not rumor milling here, but I believe the new Turing test is turning $10,000 into $1 million in a month. Like, I think that's, so if we're trying to make the greatest money-making machine ever, that's what we're going to get. But this technology is thousands of people in buildings, and we can tell them what to do. Like, which I'm stealing from one of our subjects, by the way. So I think that's the important is, you know, speak up any way you can, and that's messy and confusing, but it's also individual and it's different for each person, and it's lunch pail work. You got to figure it out for yourself. So I can't tell you what to do this month other than look at your own life and look at how you interact with these things and point the boat.
I just feel like he's the best dad. Oh my God.
Well, one, I will say support these filmmakers. Watch things on Kinema. Watch these movies. Watch them with people. A thing I want to flag is that, like, technology, when you close your eyes and think of it, ultimately feels like something you have to plug in. And I want to volunteer here at Solidarity House that community is also a technology. Technology is a thing you use to do stuff. And, like, that's not going anywhere. That's human, that's real, that's here. Use it. I do also want to call out, like, there are ethical alternatives to the things that you have been promised and sold. Investigate them, find people, learn from, listen to, be curious about what is a default? What are the default settings that you have grown used to? Emily invited us to discard comfort, right? I think this idea of introducing friction is really important. But it feels good to do things with other people and to make things and to make choices. That feels good. And it's a lot better than, like, whatever the word of the year, doom scroll, brain rot, like all that stuff. Like, use community as a technology. It's one of the things that Mozilla Foundation insists upon. And it's messy. The open source community, guys, it's hectic and messy because, you know, people are participating. And participation is, you know, what's the point if you're not doing that? You know, so I would just say community is a technology, use it. That's my guidance.
We're saying like guidance. Is that what the? Sorry.
Like what is one thing?
Key takeaways, next steps.
Next steps. Well, I'm gonna
circle
take,
back.
I'm gonna take Dayo's
Action
thing.
items.
I think that I think what you said about community is the mission of the week, right? Like, we are in this space where everyone has journeyed to the top of this mountain to be together, and literally, I was just saying, like, in a coffee shop line, like, my favorite thing about Sundance is just being, like, somewhere random and just saying hi and kind of being like cringy, but I'm just gonna do it. And then it's always like a new friendship that's electric and amazing. And I think that what you said, using this week to build community in the real world is what we're here for.
Do it live.
There's two parts. The people who have been driving this particular narrative around technology are people, and I have been reminded that they could benefit from being reminded of that. I spend a lot of time in corporate tech circles. I do talks and panels and shit, and there's usually two people in one body that I encounter. There's the person who's like the corporate being, who's trying to go up and to the right with the KPIs and the action items and all that stuff. And it's an obligation that they feel, and they're compensated for it, and it's an autopilot way of living. And we all do some version of it. Like, we buy shit, you know, so we're already implicated in that thing we're criticizing. And then there's the other person who's a parent who's a relative of someone else or something else, and they don't really feel like they have space to bring that out. So if you have a relationship yourself with someone who's in that position, just for all of us and for them, remind them of their own humanity. I think that's good work. The second thing is I'm just going to reverse some words. Dayo, we have been in this like poetic dialogue here this whole time, and when you say, you know, use community as a technology, I'm going to circle it back and say use technology as community. So much of why we feel subjugated in this moment is the divide and conquer. It's the personalization, the individuation, the isolation and hyper independence, where you get to make a movie all by yourself. And you get to make $1 million all by yourself. And we're gonna have the first company of $1 trillion run by one person, and that's supposed to be celebrated, our loneliness. And then why do we have a loneliness epidemic? Because these are the incentives. Like, we celebrate lonely achievement. And we're all having these individual experiences with sometimes crushing worldviews. And if we just experience them together, like the social technology isn't everybody gets their own account. It's like log in together, interpret this together, critique together, and to your point, build better shit together.
This whole weekend has been a pleasure of my lifetime. This panel is
Thank you, Emily.
like, holy shit. These people.
Holy shift.
Holy shift. This man
My
and
friend
his
Sam
words.
Rader did that. Those are her words.
I'm going to tell you just a really, really quick example of when can you remind people of their humanity. I hosted a dinner in Salt Lake City for a bunch of chief people officers of companies. And the conversation was almost completely dominated by AI and how to adopt AI in the workplace and all of these things. And I was a little bit alarmed and recognized the algorithmic division because one of the women, a chief people officer of a large organization, was like, you know, my 13-year-old just told me there's an environmental impact to AI. I am not making this up. I am telling that is verbatim what was said in front of me. And I was like, fix your face, Emily. And
Thank you for the opportunity.
and so
fellow
we
human.
had all of this sort of conversation, and I finally decided to like take a little bit of a personal risk because they were all talking. There was one guy in particular who was like, AI is going to make all of your worst performers your top performers, and this is what we're going to do. And it's, you know, anyway, he's very cavalier about it, and everybody should use it, and there should be no guardrails on it. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take a risk here and tell you, like, I live in the state of Georgia where we are offering a lot of tax incentives for data centers. And my power bill is now never south of $400 a month. And that's not because of my power use. I am that mom that is running around the house being like, turn the lights off, right? And so I'm just going to say to you in this room, like, every time you're using AI to do stuff, I am literally paying the bill. Me, Emily. And I'm the least rich person in this fucking room. Okay? And this guy goes, well, isn't that just politics? And I said, no, sir, that's community. And he goes, community. And I've been thinking about this motherfucker every day. because actually, this thing that you said, Baratunde, of reminding people that they have a body, that there are other people with bodies, and those bodies pay bills, and that we are literally, with the technology that we're building, having other people pay for it. And so to the extent that we can be in relation to each other and take that moment to be like, I'm going to take a little personal risk here and tell you what my experience is. You never know what bonehead man might have a small revelation. And sometimes those tiny movements are the best we can hope for in a day, you know? But if we're all working on those tiny movements become large movements. And that's my gratitude to this panel is these are people who really deeply understand that and put in the work day after day. And I know so many people in this room do the same. So I want to thank you so much for being here. You know, Solidarity House is a practice of this. It's organized by over more than 50 movement builders within and surrounding the independent film community. And we invite you to hold close a reminder that solidarity across infrastructure means recognizing that our organizations are stronger when we share knowledge, pool resources, and coordinate strategy, right? That we know that every little thing we do individually helps all of us collectively. So this is our call to action. You will hear this many times. Find 2 people before you leave, but you have to be out of here in 30 minutes. Find 2 people before you leave, and tell them with your greatest bravery, your big, hairy, audacious dream, goal, hope for your work or for humanity or for solidarity or for our independent film community. And also share with them the challenges that you're personally facing. And make one offer of support and one ask for help, but do not make it to the same person. And this is a solidarity practice to understand that if we are all asking and offering, everyone in this room will be cared for. And we have to trust enough in each other to truly believe in that. I also want to just quickly thank Siegel Family Endowment, who gave us Motherboard, the tech justice nonprofit that I co-founded, a little bit of money to start to seed this conversation, and that started me reaching out, and that was part of what connected us for Solidarity House. And so even one small yes that you give, as my dad likes to say, you know what you do, but you don't know what you do does. I don't think you imagined this when you said yes to me over the phone. So sometimes Zoom calls turn into Solidarity Houses. You can look at the schedule. There are lots of QR codes around the room. Please be well, take care of each other, hugs, be real in the room, take deep breaths. We'll see you at the next session.
Excellent facilitation.
Thank you, Emily.
Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you.